Ethan Reyes had never seen so many stars before. From the window of the orbital shuttle, space stretched wide and endless. Constellations he knew from Earth were lost among new clusters of light. The darkness was not empty. It was alive with glowing stations, tiny transport ships, and the streaks of engines passing through vacuum. For a moment, Ethan pressed his forehead against the glass and simply stared. He had grown up in a small town where the night sky was dim with city lights. Now he was standing at the edge of the galaxy, about to step into a new world. His chest felt heavy, as if excitement and fear had fused together inside him. This was the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, the first time Earth had joined. Thousands had applied, but only 50 humans had been chosen. Ethan had been one of them. He told himself it was an honor, a chance to prove that humans belonged out here. But deep inside he wondered if he could survive. Even the first week, the shuttle shook gently as it docked with the Academy station. Lights flickered, and a calm, mechanical voice announced, "Welcome to Vayner Academy. Students, please collect your belongings and proceed to orientation." Ethan clutched his small duffel bag. Most of the other students were not human. Some had shimmering scales that reflected the light like jewels. Others had long limbs with multiple joints, moving in ways his eyes could barely follow. He felt painfully ordinary in comparison. Just a young man in a plain uniform, black hair messy from the trip, trying not to look out of place. When the doors opened, a wave of sound rushed in. The Academy's docking bay was alive with motion cargo drones buzzing overhead, translators humming in many voices, banners hanging with words written in dozens of alien scripts. Ethan's translator device flickered as it tried to catch up, whispering rough English into his ear. He followed the flow of students through security checks until they reached a wide atrium. The air was fresh, scented faintly of something floral, and the floor gleamed with polished stone. A large hologram projected a message above them. Knowledge through unity. Welcome, scholars. A tall insectoid officer began calling names, pairing students into dormitories. Ethan waited nervously, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He heard names called in deep, rumbling tones and sharp, clicking ones. Finally, his own name echoed through the hall. Ethan Reyes, assigned with Lyra Vayner. The moment he heard the name, a ripple of murmurs moved through the alien students. Some tilted their heads, ears twitching or tails swaying. Ethan frowned, confused. Then he saw her. Lyra stepped forward from the crowd with the easy grace of a predator. She was Vulpine, one of the fox-like species that dominated much of the Dominion. Her fur was a pale silver gold, catching the light like spun metal. Sharp eyes, bright amber, studied him as if weighing his entire soul. She wore the same uniform as the others, but her long tail moved slowly behind her, swaying with a rhythm that looked almost like thought. Ethan swallowed hard. He had read about the Vulpine Dominion, their cunning strategies, their famous military academies. They were respected and feared. And now, one of them was going to be his roommate. Lyra's ears flicked back and then forward again. She stepped closer, stopping just a breath away. Ethan froze as those amber eyes locked onto his dot. For a long moment she said nothing. The noise of the atrium seemed to fade. Then, in a low and steady voice, she spoke. "You are my soul bond." Ethan blinked. He wasn't sure if he heard correctly. The translator on his wrist beeped, then repeated the words in English, "You are my soul bond." His mouth went dry. Sorry, what?" Lyra didn't flinch. Her gaze stayed fixed on him, intense and certain, as if she had just announced a fact of the universe. Around them, several Vulpine students whispered to each other. A few even bowed their heads respectfully. Ethan gave an awkward laugh, trying to break the tension. "I think you mean roommate, just room assignment?" Lyra's ears twitched. "No, not that. Soul bond. Cathera." She placed her hand against her chest, then pointed at him. "You, me. Fated." Ethan's face turned red. Fated soul bond? Was this some cultural misunderstanding? Or maybe a bad translation? He wanted to believe it was just a mistake, right? He muttered, scratching the back of his neck. Maybe we should, just head to the dorm first. Lyra's expression didn't change. She gave a small nod, but her eyes never left him. Their assigned quarters were down a curved corridor lined with glowing panels. The door opened smoothly when Lyra pressed her wrist chip to the scanner. Inside, the dormitory was simple, but comfortable: 2 beds on opposite walls, a shared desk, and a large screen that could project data in any language. Ethan tossed his bag onto his bed with relief. Finally, a place where he could breathe. But when he turned, he found Lyra still standing there, watching him. So, Ethan began carefully. Soul bond. What does that mean for you? Lyra tilted her head, her ears flicking. It means the stars chose. Rare, sacred, unbreakable.
X.
Big, Ethan said slowly. He forced a smile. But I think you might be mistaken. I mean, we just met. No mistake, Lyra replied. I know. Her certainty made him uneasy. He tried to focus on unpacking, but her gaze followed him like a shadow. Every time he looked up, those golden eyes were waiting. Later that evening, the academy held a welcoming banquet. Long tables filled the hall with dishes from dozens of world's bowls of glowing fruit. Steaming platters of insect-like crusts, delicate cups of spiced liquids. Ethan found some kind of bread and soup that reminded him faintly of home. Lyra sat across from him, watching silently. When he tore a piece of bread and handed it to her in a friendly gesture, the hall went quiet for a second. Several Vulpine students leaned forward, whispering excitedly. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, then softened. She accepted the bread as though it were a sacred ritual. What? Ethan whispered, noticing the stares. Lyra's voice was quiet but firm. You confirmed it? Sharing food is binding. Now, all will see. Ethan nearly dropped his spoon. Wait, no, I was just being polite. But it was too late. The whispers had spread. Other Vulpine nodded to each other, some even giving Ethan approving glances. By the end of the night, the story had already taken root. The human had been chosen as Lyra Vayner's soul bond. Back in the dorm, Ethan collapsed onto his bed, covering his face with both hands. This is insane, he muttered. I came here to learn, not to. Whatever this is. From her bed, Lyra's voice drifted softly through the room. Do not fear, Ethan Reyes. The bond will guide you. Ethan groaned, staring at the ceiling. He had wanted adventure, yes. He had wanted to prove that humans could belong among the stars. But he hadn't expected to be claimed as someone's soulmate on the very first day. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of golden eyes and stars burning brighter than he had ever seen, and somewhere deep inside, though he would never admit it, a part of him wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was more truth in Lyra's words than he wanted to believe. The next morning began with a loud chime from the wall panel. Ethan groaned, pulling the thin blanket over his head. He was not used to waking in a room where one side hummed with alien energy fields and the other side had a roommate, who rose with military precision. Lyra was already up. Her fur brushed smooth, her uniform neat, and her tail swishing lightly as she checked her datapad. When she saw Ethan struggling to sit up, she tilted her head with quiet amusement. You rise late, she said. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Back on Earth, this would still be night. Here, the day is efficient, Lyra replied. We begin training at first light, Ethan sighed. Yeah, I'm starting to notice. He shuffled to the small sink, splashed water on his face, and tried to look awake. Lyra never stopped watching him, eyes bright, as though every move he made carried hidden meaning. Ethan felt his ears burning. When they headed out, the academy halls were full of students moving in disciplined lines. Holographic signs glowed above them in multiple languages, guiding each group to their classes. Ethan clutched his schedule and followed Lyra. The first class was Cultural Foundations, meant to help exchange students learn about each other's customs. Ethan thought it might finally give him some answers. The instructor, a tall bird-like scholar with shimmering feathers, spread her wings as she spoke. Today we study the concept of sacred bonds among different peoples. For some, this is blood. For others, it is ritual. Among the Vulpine, she paused, her sharp eyes flicking toward Lyra and Ethan. It is the soul bond, or Cathera? Ethan sank lower in his seat. Lyra sat upright, her tail curling neatly around her chair. She looked proud, as though this lesson existed for her alone. The instructor continued. A Vulpine soul bond is rare. It is not chosen. It is recognized. When two are fated, every action confirms the connection. To share food, to defend, to sacrifice strengthens the bond. Several students glanced at Ethan, whispering. His face grew hot. He tried to shrink further into his chair, but the stares followed him. The instructor's eyes rested on him briefly. We have heard. One such bond may already exist in this very program. Ethan coughed. It's not what you think, really. Lyra's ears flicked and she spoke firmly. It is true. The room buzzed. Ethan groaned inwardly. After class, he hurried out, but Lyra matched his pace easily. Why do you deny? She asked. Because it's not real, Ethan whispered harshly. We just met yesterday. People don't become soulmates overnight. Lyra stopped walking. Her eyes narrowed, but not in anger, more in confusion. Humans do not feel fate. We believe in choices, Ethan said. In time, in getting to know someone before making huge declarations. Lyra's tail swayed slowly. Strange, but I will not change what I know. Ethan threw his hands up. Great, fantastic. So now the entire academy thinks I'm bonded. Lyra's lips curved faintly, a smile so small it almost vanished. Then perhaps the academy is wise. Ethan sighed and walked on, muttering to himself. This was going to be harder than he thought. Over the next few days, the misunderstandings only grew. At lunch, Ethan tried to be friendly by helping Lyra carry an extra tray. She accepted it solemnly, and half the cafeteria gasped as if he had performed a sacred vow. When Ethan fixed a broken chair in their dorm, by tightening the bolts with a simple human multi-tool, Lyra watched with shining eyes. You repair what is weak, she murmured. Proof again. It's just a chair, Ethan protested. But every small gesture, every casual kindness, was taken as another sign of destiny. Word spread fast. Other Vulpine cadets began treating Ethan with unusual respect. Some even bowed slightly when he passed. The humans in the program gave him odd looks, whispering jokes behind their hands. One evening, Ethan sat at the desk, running his hands through his hair. This is out of control, he muttered. They're going to build statues of me at this rate. Lyra, sitting cross-legged on her bed, tilted her head. Why does this trouble you? To be Cathera is honor, 'cause I didn't earn it. Ethan snapped. He caught himself and softened his voice. Back home, people respect you for what you do, not because of some prophecy or bond you didn't ask for. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, Perhaps you will earn it then. Ethan froze. He had no answer to that. The turning point came during a training exercise, the academy. Organized mixed-species teams to complete obstacle courses. Ethan was placed with Lyra and two others, a reptilian student named Rax and a slender, plant-like being named Selin. The course was designed with alien strengths and mine-tall climbing walls. Narrow tunnels, balance beams, slick with mist. Ethan struggled to keep up. His muscles burned and his hands slipped on surfaces not meant for human skin. Rax hissed in annoyance. Slow human. Dead weight. Ethan clenched his jaw, trying harder. But when he fell from a climbing net and landed hard on his shoulder, laughter rippled through the group. Before Ethan could rise, Lyra stood over him, her ears pinned back. Do not mock him, she growled. He is mine. The words silenced the others. Rax sneered but said nothing more. Ethan sat up, breathing hard. He wanted to argue, to say he didn't need protecting. But when he met Lyra's fierce eyes, something inside him shifted. She wasn't mocking him. She was defending him. Not because he was weak, but because she believed in him. truly believed. That night, lying in his bunk, Ethan stared at the ceiling. He thought about Lyra's words, about how every culture saw strength differently. To the reptilians, strength was speed and muscle. To the Vulpine, strength was loyalty to the bond. To humans, maybe it was something else entirely. He wasn't sure yet. But he was starting to feel that his place here might be bigger than he first imagined. The misunderstandings did not vanish. But they began to carry less weight. Ethan still cringed when others whispered soul bond as he passed, but part of him no longer felt the urge to run from it. One evening, as the two of them sat quietly in their dorm, Lyra broke the silence. "You resist the bond?" she said softly. "But you do not hate me for it." Ethan looked at her. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. She seemed less like a mysterious alien then, more like a person trying to make sense of something as strange as he was. "No," he admitted. "I don't hate you. I just don't understand you yet." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then we will learn." For the first time, Ethan smiled without nervousness. Maybe he didn't have to believe in destiny. Maybe learning together was enough. The weeks at Vayner Academy passed with slow rhythm, but Ethan never felt at ease. He studied hard, trained harder, and tried to ignore the whispers that followed him in every corridor. No matter where he went, someone always mentioned the word soul bond. Some of the humans joked about it behind his back. Some of the Vulpine treated him with odd reverence. But not everyone looked kindly at the attention he received. Rax, the reptilian cadet with cold green eyes, seemed to take special interest in making Ethan's life difficult. Whenever Ethan stumbled in class or failed a drill, Rax's smirk followed him like a shadow. "Human weakness," Rax hissed one evening during combat practice. "Not fit for academy. Only hiding behind Vulpine's shield." Lyra's ears pinned back, her tail lashing. "Ethan does not hide," she said sharply. Rax's tongue flicked. "Then let him prove it." The challenge came the next day. During a large gathering in the central hall, Rax raised his voice so all could hear. "If humans want to stand here as equals, let one face the survival trial." His cold gaze slid toward Ethan. "Let your soul bond prove himself." The hall buzzed with whispers. The survival trial was legendary, an obstacle course in the Academy's training grounds that tested strength, speed, and cunning. It was dangerous even for trained cadets. Ethan's stomach dropped. He had seen the trial once on the Academy's screens. There were cliffs to climb, deep pools to cross, and mechanical drones that acted as predators. It was designed to push a warrior's limits. "I'm not," Ethan began. But Lyra's voice cut across his. "He accepts." Ethan spun toward her. "Wait, what?" Lyra's golden eyes glowed with fierce certainty. "The bond demands proof. We will succeed." "We," Ethan whispered harshly. Lyra nodded. "The trial is for pairs. You and I will enter together." Ethan rubbed his temples. He wanted to protest, to shout that this was madness, but every eye in the hall was on him. Backing out now would mean shame, not just for him, but for humanity's place in the program. Finally, he let out a shaky breath. "Fine, but don't expect miracles." Lyra's tail flicked with quiet satisfaction. "No need for miracles. Only truth." The day of the trial arrived quickly. Ethan stood at the edge of the training grounds, staring at the terrain ahead. High cliffs rose against an artificial sky. Forests of tall, twisted trees hid unknown dangers. Pools of black water gleamed in the light. Somewhere among it all, drones whirred, waiting to strike. Cadets lined the observation decks above, their voices a low roar. Some cheered for Lyra. Others muttered about the human who dared to enter. Ethan's palms sweated as he adjusted the strap on his simple gear pack. "This is insane," he muttered. Lyra placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Breathe. Fear clouds the path." Ethan gave a weak laugh. "Easy for you to say. You've got claws. I've got shoes." Her ears twitched in amusement. "Shoes may surprise." Before Ethan could reply, a horn sounded. The gates opened. The trial began. The first obstacle was a climb up a jagged cliff. The stone was slick, designed to test grip and balance. Lyra moved with swift grace, claws digging into cracks as she scaled upward. Ethan followed slowly, his fingers slipping. Sweat stung his eyes. Halfway up, his foot missed a hold. He nearly fell, but he caught a ledge at the last second. Gasps echoed from the watchers above. "Ethan," Lyra called, her voice sharp. "I'm fine," he panted, pulling himself back up. His arm shook, but he forced himself higher. One step at a time, when he finally reached the top, Lyra was waiting, her eyes steady. "See? Shoes can surprise." Ethan let out a shaky laugh, though his chest burned. The second challenge was a dense forest where the air shimmered with traps. Drones darted through the trees, shooting harmless but painful stun pulses. Ethan ducked as one buzzed past his ear. Lyra leaped between roots, claws slashing at drones with precise strikes. Ethan, slower and less agile, found another way. He grabbed fallen branches. Throwing them to trigger traps before stepping forward, he moved carefully, watching patterns. Using logic where speed failed him, by the time they reached the forest's edge, Ethan was bruised and exhausted. But they had lost fewer points than many others. "You read the ground," Lyra said, approving. "You saw paths even I missed." Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. "Guess I've got more than shoes." The third obstacle was water. A wide pool stretched before them, dotted with floating platforms. Some platforms were stable. Others would sink without warning. Mechanical eels glided just below the surface, snapping at anything that touched the water. Lyra bounded ahead with ease, leaping from one platform to the next. Ethan hesitated, then took a deep breath and followed. His legs wobbled with each jump. Twice he nearly slipped into the water, but each time he caught his balance. Halfway across, one platform tilted sharply. Ethan lost his footing and fell with a splash. The water was shockingly cold. He thrashed as an eel surged toward him, jaws wide. "Ethan!" Lyra cried, spinning back. Adrenaline surged through him. Instead of panicking, he kicked hard, grabbing the side of the platform. As the eel lunged, he swung his gear pack into its snout. The machine reeled back, sparks flying, giving him enough time to haul himself out of the water. The crowd roared. Ethan coughed, dripping, but alive. Lyra's eyes burned with fierce pride as she pulled him the rest of the way across. "You fought it," she said softly. "Not many would." Ethan managed a tired grin. "Guess I'm stubborn." The final challenge was the worst. A wide arena opened before them, and from hidden gates. Larger drones poured out, mechanical beasts with glowing eyes, built to chase, block, and overwhelm. Lyra crouched low, ready to fight, but Ethan grabbed her arm. "Wait, we can't beat them head on, then what?" she demanded. Ethan scanned the arena. His mind raced. The drones moved in predictable patterns, each guarding a sector. He spotted gaps, small openings where their paths overlapped. "We time it," he said quickly. "We move when they cross. Not against them, between them." Lyra blinked, then nodded. "Show me." Together they dashed forward. Ethan called out counts, guiding them through narrow spaces. Twice a drone nearly caught them, but they slipped through, using timing instead of strength. When they finally burst through the far gate, the horn sounded again. The trial was complete. The stands erupted in cheers and shouts. Some cadets looked stunned. Others glared in disbelief. But none could deny what they had seen. The human had survived. Ethan bent over, gasping, his legs trembling. Lyra stood beside him, tail high, eyes blazing with pride. "You led," she said quietly. "You saw what I did not." Ethan shook his head. "We did it together." She studied him for a long moment, then gave a rare, genuine smile. "Perhaps this is the truth of our bond." That night, back in the dorm, Ethan lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His muscles ached. His body felt like it had been torn apart and put back together. But his heart was strangely light. For the first time since arriving, he didn't feel like an outsider. He felt human, but strong enough to stand among them. Across the room, Lyra's voice drifted softly. "Today, you earned respect." Not only mine. There's two. Ethan closed his eyes, a small smile on his lips. Maybe he hadn't proved he was anyone's soul bond. But he had proved something else, that humans had a place out here, and that was enough. And yet, deep inside, a small voice whispered, maybe Lyra was right after all. The Academy spoke of the survival trial for many days. Some praised Ethan for his clever thinking. Others whispered that he had been lucky. A few still sneered, saying humans could never last in real danger. Ethan tried not to think about it. But the memory of the trial stayed sharp in his mind, the freezing water. The drone's glowing eyes, the roar of the crowd when he stood back up. For the first time since arriving, he felt like maybe he belonged. Lyra stayed close to him. She didn't call him weak or slow. She didn't even tease him. She simply looked at him with that steady golden gaze, as if waiting for him to accept something he still wasn't ready to believe. But peace never lasted long at Vayner Academy, 1 week after the trial. The cadets were called to the main training grounds again. This time it was not for a challenge, but for a large-scale simulation exercise. The instructors explained it would test teamwork between species. They would face drones, traps, and obstacles once more. But in squads of 10 instead of pairs. Ethan felt nervous, but also curious. At least this time I won't be alone, he muttered. Lyra stood beside him, her ears flicking. You are never alone, she said. Their squad was a strange mix of Vulpine, including Lyra. Rax, the reptilian, who still glared at Ethan with cold disdain. A pair of bird-like scholars with sharp talons, a heavy-set insectoid, and 3 humans, including Ethan. Remember, the instructor announced. This is safe. No true harm will come. But failure will cost points. The gates opened. The simulation began. At first, things went smoothly. The squad worked together to cross ridges and dodge drones. Ethan used his eye for patterns to warn others when traps would spring. Lyra moved with sharp precision, her claws flashing against mechanical opponents. Even Rax followed commands, though he muttered under his breath whenever Ethan spoke. But halfway through the course, something went wrong. A drone swooped down with glowing red eyes brighter than usual. Its energy pulse hit a tree, shattering it into burning shards. The cadets froze. Drones were not supposed to fire live blasts. Another drone dived, firing again. The insectoid cadet screeched as his armor smoked from the hit. He stumbled, stunned, but alive. This isn't part of the simulation. One of the bird-like cadets cried. The ground shook as more drones appeared, their movements jerky and unstable. The instructor's voice did not come through their earpieces. The control system was silent. They've malfunctioned, Lyra said grimly. Her tail lashed. This is no test. This is danger. Panic spread through the squad. Some ran for cover. Others tried to fight, but the drones struck harder than expected. Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at the chaos the cadets scattering, the drones advancing, and he knew one thing. If they broke apart, people would get hurt. Stay together, he shouted, his voice cracking. Form a line. Protect the injured. Rax sneered. Why follow the human? Because he's right, Lyra snapped. Her eyes burned. We need order. Reluctantly, the squad gathered. Ethan's mind raced. He wasn't the strongest or fastest, but he could see the field clearly, the drone's movements, the weak spots, the paths of escape. Talons. Distract them from above, he said quickly. Lyra, take the front with Rax. Insectoid, shield the humans. I'll guide from the rear. They moved. Slowly, shakily, but they moved. The drones attacked in waves. Lyra slashed through one, sparks flying. Rax struck with brutal force, his scales deflecting energy. Ethan shouted directions, pulling cadets away from danger at the last second, but then a massive drone emerged taller than the others, its frame glowing with unstable power. It charged straight toward the group. The insectoid was too slow to block. The blast hit him full force, sending him sprawling. Without thinking, Ethan ran forward. He grabbed the insectoid's arm and hauled with all his strength. dragging him behind cover just as another blast scorched the ground. His muscles screamed, but he didn't stop. Lyra's eyes widened as she saw him shield the fallen cadet with his own body. The great drone turned its burning gaze on Ethan. For one breath, he froze. He knew he couldn't outrun it. The blast came. At the last second, Lyra lunged, pushing him aside. The beam grazed her shoulder, leaving a smoking line through her uniform. She staggered but stayed standing, her teeth bared in a snarl. "Ethan Reyes," she growled, "you will not fall." Adrenaline surged through Ethan. He scrambled up, grabbing a fallen piece of metal. "We can't fight it head-on," he shouted. "Aim for the joints, look, where the plates connect." Lyra glanced at him once, then nodded. Together, with Rax and the others, they struck the drone's weaker spots. Sparks burst from its limbs. Its movements faltered. Finally, with one last coordinated blow, it collapsed in a shower of broken parts. Silence followed. The drone stopped. The field went still. Then the emergency lights flashed, and the instructors rushed in. The cadets were pulled from the field quickly. The injured were taken to medical. Ethan sat on the ground, his chest heaving, his arms trembling from exhaustion. His body ached, but he was alive. Lyra stood nearby, her shoulder bandaged, her gaze locked on him. "You risked yourself," she said quietly. Ethan let out a weak laugh. "You did the same for me?" Lyra shook her head. "Not the same. You shielded another with no bond, no promise. You placed yourself in the fire." Her eyes glowed softly. "That is the heart of Cathara." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had acted without thinking, just following instinct. But maybe that was the point. Humans didn't always wait for destiny. They created it in moments of choice. When the instructors addressed the squad later, their voices were grave. The malfunction was unexpected. The drones were not meant to attack with full power. Yet you survived. Not only survive, do you work together when others would have scattered. That will be remembered. Ethan glanced at the others. Even Rax looked at him with something close to respect, though his mouth twisted as if the word burned his tongue. That night, in the dorm, Ethan lay in silence. Every muscle throbbed. His mind replayed the fight, the blast, Lyra's push. The moment he thought he would die, Lyra sat on her bed, her eyes watching him as always. But this time, there was no teasing in her gaze. Only warmth. "You understand now?" she asked softly. Ethan turned his head. "Understand what?" "The bond," she whispered. "It is not prophecy. It is choice. And today, you chose." Ethan closed his eyes. He wanted to argue, to deny, but the words wouldn't come. He remembered the insectoid's weight in his arms, the fear, the fire, and the strange calm that came when he decided not to run. Maybe Lyra was right. Maybe fate was not about stars or destiny. Maybe it was about the choices you made when it mattered most. For the first time, Ethan didn't push the thought away. The academy was quiet the next morning, but the events of the survival trial still echoed in everyone's minds. Cadets spoke in hushed tones about the human who had survived against malfunctioning drones, guiding his squad through chaos with calm logic. Some whispered admiration. Others still muttered disbelief. Ethan walked through the corridors. His uniform slightly wrinkled, his hair messy, but his head held high. He could feel the weight of many eyes following him, measuring him, judging him. He wasn't sure if he was ready for it. "You slept well?" she asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. "No, too many thoughts. Too much adrenaline. And everyone's still staring at me like I don't know, a hero or something." Lyra's golden eyes glimmered. "You are." He blinked. Maybe. But I didn't do it for that. I just did what had to be done, and then that is why it matters," Lyra said simply. The program directors gathered all exchange students in the central hall later that day. The banners of the Vulpine Dominion hung high above, and holographic screens displayed cadets from other worlds. One director, tall Vulpine elder with silver fur, stepped forward. His voice echoed clearly across the hall. "This morning, we witnessed something remarkable. A human student, Ethan Reyes, faced the survival trial under unforeseen danger. Not only did he survive, but he guided his squad, protecting others, showing ingenuity and courage. This is a quality rare in any species. Yet he did it without vulpine claws, without alien enhancements, only human strength, human mind, human heart. Ethan's chest tightened. He had never imagined being praised like this, especially in front of beings so far beyond him in every physical way. The elder continued. Her loyalty and skill were formidable. Together they proved that bonds are not only destiny, but choice. They chose to protect, to cooperate, and to act with honor. Today humanity has earned its place among us, and their bond is recognized as true Cathara. Even Rax, who had glared at Ethan for weeks, gave a curt nod. Ethan felt a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. Lyra nudged him gently. You hear? You are not just human. You are more. Ethan managed a small smile. I guess. I am learning that. The room felt different now, lighter somehow. It was still a simple space, but it held more meaning. You saved lives today. Not only humans, not only Vulpine. All who were in the trial, that is strength of heart, not body. Ethan shrugged. I just did what I thought was right. Maybe luck helped too. Lyra shook her head. No luck. You saw patterns others could not. You acted when others froze. That is human strength. That is why I chose you as Cathara. Today proved it. Ethan looked down at his hands. I never thought that humans could do something like this here. I always felt weak compared to you, to the others. Lyra stood and walked over to him, her golden eyes softening. You are human, yes? But humanity is not measured by claws, wings, or speed. It is measured by choice, by courage, by the heart. Today, you proved you have all of that. Ethan swallowed, feeling emotions he could not name. He wanted to argue, to deny, to stay humble, but her words were true. For the first time, he felt proud of who he was, not despite being human, but because of it. The next week at the academy was calmer, though the events of the trial had left a lasting impression. Other cadets treated Ethan differently now, with respect, sometimes with awe, but never with mockery. He began to notice other humans quietly doing what he had done in the trial, using thought, not strength, to solve problems. The Vulpine and other species started looking at humans not as fragile newcomers, but as beings capable of clever solutions and teamwork. Even Rax, though still gruff, had begun including Ethan in planning exercises. He never complimented him openly, but Ethan could sense a grudging respect. Lyra continued to stay close, her presence steady and comforting. She still teased him, still whispered about destiny and bonds, but now her words carried warmth rather than intensity. One evening, Ethan watched her as she practiced combat moves in the dorm training area. Her tail swayed rhythmically, claws flashing in precise motions. Despite her grace, she glanced at him and smiled. You watch carefully, she said. I'm learning, he replied. I need all the lessons I can get. You have learned much already, she said softly. The academy prepared for a closing ceremony of the exchange program. Families, dignitaries, and other cadets from distant systems gathered in the grand hall. Ethan and Lyra were called forward together. The director addressed the crowd. Today, we honor not only the skill of our cadets, but the spirit of cooperation and understanding. One pair has shown that bonds are more than words. Ethan Reyes of Earth and Lyra Vayner of the Vulpine Dominion have demonstrated courage, wisdom, and unity. Their Cathara is recognized and celebrated. Applause and cheers rang out. Ethan looked at Lyra, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. She smiled back, and in that moment, no one else mattered. He realized something he had not understood before. The bond was not about destiny written in the stars. It was about mutual respect, courage, and trust built through actions. He had earned it. She had recognized it. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of celebration. Cadets from other species approached Ethan with nods of approval. Humans smiled at him, proud that one of their own had proven their worth. Later, Back in the dorm, Ethan and Lyra sat side by side on their beds, looking out at the distant stars through the wide window. "Do you feel it now?" Lyra asked softly. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "I do, I understand. Part of it." Lyra's tail wrapped gently around his wrist. "The bond is not always easy to see. Sometimes it is built slowly, through shared struggle, trust, and protection. Today, you and I built it together." Ethan smiled. "Then maybe we were right to start as we did. Even if I didn't believe it at first." Lyra's golden eyes glimmered. "Belief is not always necessary. Choice matters more." They sat in silence, letting the hum of the station surround them. Ethan felt something new, a quiet confidence that humans, no matter how small or ordinary they seemed, had a place in the galaxy. They could survive, adapt, and even inspire respect among beings far stronger and faster. Somewhere deep in his heart, he felt gratitude for the bond, for the challenge, for the chance to prove himself. "Lyra," he said finally, "thank you for trusting me, even when I doubted myself." She leaned closer. "And thank you, Ethan Reyes, for showing me what it truly means to be human." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. No words were needed. The trials, the danger, and the challenges had shown them both something deeper: trust, courage, and understanding that reached farther than any prophecy. Ethan knew one thing for sure: he would never forget this place. These experiences, or the bond he had formed. Humans were not the strongest in the galaxy, but they were clever, resourceful, and brave. And sometimes that was enough to change the universe's view. As the stars outside the window shone brightly, Ethan felt at peace. He belonged here. Humanity belonged here. And perhaps across all the galaxies. Some bonds were meant not only by fate, but by heart and choice. And so, a human and a Vulpine sat together looking at the same stars, knowing that this was only the beginning of a future where they would face challenges together, united by courage, friendship, and a bond that would last far longer than any trial or test.